Hi, I'm Larry Suke. As a new employee to the school system, let me be the first to welcome you to the school's family. I know you have a lot on your mind these first few days with trying to learn your new job and to get to know your coworkers. However, it's important for you to understand the need to perform your job safely. The purpose of this video is to help you understand the various programs and control measures that have been put in place to reduce the likelihood of your being injured. Your ability to perform your job safely has a direct impact on the organization's overall effort to provide quality services. Effective July 1 of 1991, all employers in the state of California were required to develop and implement a written and injury and illness prevention program. SB 198, which requires this written program, is designed to improve employee safety by mandating injury and illness prevention programs. SB 198 requires employers to set up and implement various programs to reduce the likelihood of your being injured. Your understanding of the injury and illness prevention program and your active involvement play a critical role in the overall success of the reduction. By viewing this video, you're completing the first component of an ongoing program designed to enhance your ability to perform your job safely. Additional training will be provided to you as you progress through the various phases of your job. Let's take a look at what happens when an employee is injured on the job. Suffering is often the most obvious result of an accident. Whether it's a first aid case, reportable injury, or a fatality, someone suffers. Not only do injuries affect you directly, but they often result in worry to your family and extra work for your fellow workers. Accidents cost money. Work-related injuries are covered under workers' compensation. It's important to understand the school districts are self-insured for their workers' compensation. What this means is that every time an employee is injured, the cost associated with that injury comes directly out of the school district's operating budget. This means for every dollar spent on workers' compensation, that's $1 less that is available for employee salaries for the purchase of supplies and materials needed to perform your job. By way of this video, we hope to convey to you your responsibility for working safely. Accident and injury prevention starts with you. Let's take a look at a primary cause of injuries and why they occur. Accidents are a result of three basic reasons: unsafe attitudes, unsafe behaviors, and unsafe conditions. Now, you may think that unsafe conditions are the main reason for accidents, such as a tear in water on the floor or other hazards, but studies have shown that 90% of all employee injuries are a result of unsafe behavior or unsafe attitudes. These unsafe attitudes and behaviors play a significant role in allowing accidents and injuries to occur. Unsafe attitudes include impatience, boredom, overconfidence, recklessness, and a willful disregard for health and safety rules and regulations. Unsafe behaviors are considered the driving force of accidents and injuries. Behaviors such as taking shortcuts, ignoring warning signs, taking unnecessary risks, joining in horseplay, or improper use of tools are examples of unsafe behaviors. Proper training and job knowledge is the key to eliminating unsafe behaviors. Hopefully you'll never have an injury. Let's take a look at what you can do to reduce the chance of you or one of your fellow employees from being injured. First of all, use safe procedures. Know your job and what it takes to do it safely. If you're not sure, ask your supervisor. Learn to do your job the right way, which is usually the safe way. Don't take shortcuts. Always obey warning signs, and if you recognize a hazard, report it immediately to a supervisor or a member of the safety committee. If you do identify a hazard, take the time to correct the problem or warn others that the hazard exists. Conditions which have the potential to cause an injury should never be allowed to remain. The school system's injury prevention program has established specific policies and procedures for reporting unsafe conditions or hazards. As an employee, it's your responsibility to bring these unsafe conditions or hazards to the attention of management. Systems are available in the injury prevention program that allow you to submit reports of unsafe condition or hazards. Your supervisor should cover this information with you once you arrive in your department. When performing your job, use the proper equipment to do the job safely. Remember, unsafe behavior is the primary reason for employee injuries. Don't stand on desks or chairs when attempting to reach high places. Instead, use a step stool or ladder. Use personal protective equipment, safety glasses, rubber gloves, respirators, and other equipment when required. Again, don't take shortcuts. Do the job the right way. When you get to your work site, ask your supervisor to review the fire and safety emergency procedures for your department. Look around for your location of your portable fire equipment and exit. What to do in the event of an emergency. Finally, come to work physically and mentally capable of doing your job. Take good care of your health, and it will help you handle job stressors more effectively. Get exercise and enough rest. Eat a balanced, healthy diet, and you'll be ready for change. Try to reduce stress by abusing drugs and alcohol. Even prescription drugs can be as dangerous as non-prescription drugs if used in an improper manner. If your doctor has prescribed medication that may affect your ability to perform your job safely, then inform your supervisor immediately. If your job requires you to lift or move things, you'll be receiving more information on back injury prevention when you get to your department. It's important that you learn how to prevent injuries from moving things. If you have to lift, look over the object to be lifted. Make sure it's not too heavy or too clumsy. Size up the load. Get help if the load is too bulky or heavy for you to lift alone. Don't ask someone else for a hand. Be sure to apply proper lifting techniques, whether working alone or as a team. Let's take a few minutes to review those lifting techniques. First, get close to the load and grasp firmly. Hug it. Place your feet firmly apart for good balance. Bend your knees. Keep the load close to the center of your body. Lift gradually, smoothly, and without jerking. Don't twist your back while lifting, but pivot with your feet. Push, don't pull. Whenever possible, push rather than pull. You can push twice as much as you can pull while running less risk of back injury. When possible, use mechanical help such as push carts, hand trucks, or a forklift. Keep in mind that posture and a healthy back can help prevent back injury. Your back is not made to stay in one position for a long time. So for relief, try the following. Raise and rest one foot on something about 8 inches high. Crouch periodically to relax your back. If you've been bending forward, stretch and bend backwards. If you've been standing in one place, move your feet. At your desk, work at a comfortable height that doesn't make you slouch or reach. Height to keep your knees level with your hips. If you need to, place a pillow behind your back for additional support. Keep your back in good shape. 80% of all back pain can be traced to lack of exercise. Lose weight if you're not at your recommended weight. Losing excess pounds take a sizable load off your back. Finally, your spine is sensitive to muscle tension that builds up during a stress-filled day. Learn how to relax and unwind. Organize your daily routine to make it easier on both your mind and body. While we're on the subject of prevention, keep in mind several tips that you can take to prevent accidents. Pick up everything spilled or dropped on the floor. Liquids, paper, even paper clips can be dangerous. When walking, watch your step. Don't read while walking and don't obstruct your view or vision with high loads. Use handrails for extra support when going up and down stairs. Be alert for anything that is in the path of traffic or that makes walking hazardous. Avoid groping in the dark. Report all burned out or missing lights. Wear sensible shoes for the environment that you're working in. And never, under any circumstances, leave articles on the stairs or in a hallway that could cause someone to trip and fall. Now, with respect to fire safety, there are 3 basic causes of fire you should be aware of. Number 1, careless smoking. Number 2, improper storage and use of flammable liquids and gases. And number 3, electrical equipment. Know how to prevent fires. Observe rules and remind others to do the same. Inspect your work area and equipment frequently and report unsafe conditions. Keep fire exits clear. Use extra caution around flammable liquids and gases. Know how to report a fire and where the fire extinguishers are located. Know the type of fire extinguishers in your work area and what they can be used on. Some extinguishers are for more than one class of fires. Know what to do in case of fire, including the evacuation plan for your work area. Electrical accidents can have deadly consequences, so know how to prevent electrical accidents. Inspect cords. See that no plugs or insulated areas are broken. Keep cords away from rough, sharp, hot, and greasy surfaces. Make sure the plug is grounded with a 3-prong plug or double insulated. Be alert for trouble signs. If a piece of equipment overheats, smokes, or sparks, or if you feel a light shock, turn it off. Unplug it, place a warning sign on the equipment, and notify a supervisor. Finally, water plus electricity equals trouble. Don't touch electrical equipment if you're in or near water or other wet areas.
Let's stop for a moment and take a short quiz on what we've learned so far. On the answer sheet that has been provided, circle the answer that best fits the following questions. True or false? Accidents are a result of 3 basic reasons: unsafe attitudes, unsafe behaviors, unsafe conditions. True or false? Studies have shown that 90% of all employee injuries are a result of unsafe behavior and unsafe attitudes. True or false? There are 3 basic causes of fires: careless smoking, improper storage and use of flammable liquids and gases, electrical equipment. True or false? To report a fire or emergency, dial 411. True or false? Only 3-prong electrical plugs or double electrical cords are to be used. At the conclusion of the video, someone will review the answers with you. Let's now resume our program.
Today, chemicals are part of our high quality of life and a necessary part of many work environments. Anymore, almost all jobs require that we come in contact with some form of chemical, such as acids, flammable liquids, even cleaning materials are considered to be chemicals. The school system's hazard communication program can help you better understand the chemicals you handle. The best way for you to protect your health and safety is to know about each of the chemicals you work with. Some chemicals can explode or start fires. Others can cause skin rashes, breathing problems, or more serious illnesses. But if you handle hazardous chemicals carefully, following the right precautions, these chemicals can be handled safely. You can help prevent illness and injury by reading the material safety data sheet or warning labels for the chemical you use. MSDSs and warning labels give you key health and safety information about the hazardous chemicals in your work area. Material safety data sheets should be available to you in your work area. For questions concerning specific chemicals you're working with, ask your supervisor for a copy of the MS. Warning labels combined with material safety data sheets are the primary means of communicating materials, health hazard, and general safety precaution. Warning labels typically list name, hazardous ingredients, hazardous warnings, and the chemical manufacturer's name and address. Material safety data sheets give you more detailed health and safety information, precautions for handling an emergency, and first aid procedures. Let's look a little closer at a material safety data sheet. First of all, who prepares the material safety data sheet? Well, the normal manufacturer prepares the MSDS on each of the products they produce or distribute. The MSDS is a multiple-page form that provides health and safety information on a chemical product. Each material safety data sheet may look a little different, but all give the same basic information. There are no sections to the material safety data sheet. The first section, chemical identification, helps you identify the chemical. It lists the name of the chemical, any trade names, and the chemical manufacturer's name and address. This section may also list emergency phone numbers for the manufacturers. The second section involves hazardous ingredients. This section lists what's on the chemical that can harm you. It also lists the concentration of the chemical to which you can safely be exposed, often listed as a permissible exposure limit or the threshold limit value. These safe exposure limits are usually figured for average exposures for a typical work shift. The third section involves physical data, the chemical's appearance, odor, and other characteristics. The fourth section involves fire and explosion data information. Here you can find out what temperature the chemical ignites, called the flash point. If a chemical is flammable, it ignites below 100 degrees Fahrenheit. If it's combustible, it ignites at 100 degrees Fahrenheit or above. This section also lists extinguishing material, what will put out the fire safely, such as water spray, foam, or other types of fire extinguisher. The next section involves health hazards. This section lists symptoms of overexposure, such as a skin rash, burn, headache, or dizziness. It's also going to tell you first aid emergency procedures in case of overexposure, such as flushing your exposed skin with running water for 15 minutes. It may also list any medical conditions that can be aggravated by exposure to the chemical, such as asthma. The sixth section involves reactivity data. Here you'll find whether the chemical reacts with materials or conditions. Incompatibility lists the materials such as water or other chemicals that cause the chemical to burn, explode, or release dangerous gases. Instability lists the environmental conditions such as heat or direct sunlight that causes a dangerous reaction. Section 7 will provide you information on the spill or leak procedures. This section tells you what to use when to clean up a spill or leak. No matter what the chemical is, always notify your supervisor right away before cleaning up a chemical spill. You may need to wear respiratory protection, gloves, safety goggles, or other protective clothing. This section may also include notes on how to dispose of the chemical safely. The next section involves special protection. Here you'll find a listing of any personal protective equipment such as respirators, gloves, eye protection, or other equipment that you'll need to work safely with the chemical. If protective equipment is required, this section may list specific types you should use. The last section involves special precautions. This section lists any other special precautions to follow when handling the chemical. This may include what to have nearby to clean up a spill or put out a fire, and what safety signs to post near the chemical. This section also lists any other health and safety information not covered in other parts of the MSDS. The one thing to keep in mind when working with chemicals is that for a toxic effect to happen, the chemical has to come in contact with your body. The way a chemical can enter your body is called the route of entry. It's important to understand there are three basic routes of entry. The first is through the skin, absorbing the chemical. The second is through inhalation, or breathing it. And the third is through ingestion, or swallowing the material. Depending upon their nature, chemicals can either damage the skin or cause an effect elsewhere in the body. Some of the commonly observed effects include irritation or burns of the skin that's caused by acids and bases, and rashes or dermatitis that's caused by detergents and other cleaning materials. Chemicals that are in the air can be inhaled into the lungs. This is important to know because it's the primary route of entry for any chemical entering our bodies. Hazardous chemicals deliberately. However, chemicals may enter the body route when eating, drinking, or smoking occur in a contained area, or when hands are not washed before eating. The school system's hazard communication safety in mind. You help. Before new job, safety data sheet, and read the warning labels provided on the container. Take necessary precautions to prevent injury before using the material. As a new employee, know and understand precautions necessary for performance. As always, if you have any question or are in doubt about a specific procedure, consult a supervisor for specifics.
Let's stop for a moment and take a short quiz on what we've learned so far about. Answer sheet has been provided. Circle fits the following. False. Combined with material safety sheets, information, chemicals health hazard, and general safety precautions. Health safety information, precautions for handling and aid procedures. True or false? Material safety data sheets used to determine the proper cleanup and disposal methods for a spilled chemical. True or false? There are 3 basic routes of entry a chemical can enter: through the skin, by breathing it, through ingestion of the material. True or false? The primary route of entry for chemicals is by ingestion or swallowing of the material. Someone will review the test answers with you. Resume our
In almost every office located within the school system, you'll find personal computers, also known as visual display terminals, or VDT. Computers are remarkable, time-saving tools, but they require a good deal of concentration and precision to operate. This portion of our program will address most frequently asked about the safety of visual display terminals and suggests working conditions to make them comfortable. Let's take a look at some of the myths associated with computers and VDT usage.
I've heard that my VDT gives off radiation. Should I be concerned?
No. The National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, or NIOSH, has conducted studies on VDTs that has shown that radiation levels from VDTs are well below those allowed in current standards. In fact, some measurements show radiation levels to be so low they can't be distinguished from the general background radiation found naturally in the soil and
Doesn't working at the computer screen cause muscles and eye strain?
They can. But you can make the VDT work for you by learning some basic principles of ergonomics. Ergonomics is a science which looks at how people interact safely and efficiently with machines and their working environment. You can use the principles of ergonomics to adapt and adjust your VDT work environment to make it comfortable, safe, and productive for you. Think about it. What's most comfortable for you may not be comfortable for someone else. Someone who's 6 feet tall will fit differently in a chair at a desk than someone who is 5 feet tall. So adjusting your VDT environment to what is comfortable and safe for you makes sense. Let's look at how your workstation should be set up. Your individual workstation should provide you with a comfortable, sitting position, flexible enough to reach, use, and observe the screen, keyboard, and documents that you're working from. Good posture is essential for your comfort and well-being, especially sitting for several hours a day. To prevent neck strain, keep your spine and head upright and sit well back into your chair. The seat and backrest of your chair should be easily adjustable so that you can occasionally change your working position. The keyboard, screen, and document holder should also be adjustable to provide sufficient flexibility. This is how you should be sitting at your workstation. Your thighs should be parallel to the floor with your feet resting flat on the floor or on a footrest so that they're in a neutral position. Your lower arms should also be parallel to the floor, forming a right angle with your upper arm and forearm. Your wrist should be in line with your forearm, keeping your wrist in a neutral position. The top of your screen should be slightly below eye level, with the screen about 18 to 26 inches from your eyes. If your screen doesn't adjust, use a book or some other wedge to raise the front or back of the screen to a comfortable position for you. Working at a VDT, as with other close reading, can cause eye fatigue. Use these visual exercises to help reduce eye strain. At least every 15 to 20 minutes, change your focus away from the terminal for a few seconds and look at something at least 20 feet away. Blink often, but slowly, to allow your eyes to moisten. The human body was made to move, so you'll usually experience some discomfort from sitting too long, no matter what the task. If you're working and you can't walk away from your terminal, There are exercises you can do at your desk. Begin with deep breathing and shoulder shrugs. Bring your shoulders up, breathe in, and release. Gently roll your head from side to side. Do shoulder rolls. Raise your shoulders up towards your ears and rotate them back. Then rotate them forward. Hold your wrist in front of you. Raise and lower your hands to stretch the muscles in the forearm. Repeat this several times. Make a tight fist with your hands. Hold for a second, then spread your fingers apart as far as you can. Hold this position for 5 seconds. If your responsibilities with the school involves the possible contact of blood or bodily fluids, then you'll be receiving additional training once you reach your department concerning the transmission of infectious diseases. In the interim, keep in mind the use of sterile technique and universal precautions that include frequent hand washing and the use of personal protective equipment such as gloves, gowns, eye protection, and other miscellaneous equipment. If in your job you are exposed to blood or potentially infectious materials, you'll be offered a hepatitis B vaccine at no cost to you. Taking advantage of the vaccine eliminates the potential for your contracting hepatitis B and seriously ill. Again, if you have the potential exposure to blood or infectious diseases, this information will be covered in greater detail once you reach your assigned department. Finally, many schools were during a time period when asbestos was utilized in a number of components throughout the building. It's important for you to understand that asbestos is not a hazard as long as it's maintained in good condition and not allowed to become airborne. All of the school's asbestos should have been removed or encapsulated. If you'll be working in the custodial or maintenance areas, you'll be receiving additional training on asbestos when you get to your department. If you're assigned to the maintenance or department, your chances of coming in contact with asbestos is highly unlikely. We've attempted to review the basic reasons why accidents occur and what can be done to prevent them. Okay, what should you do if you get hurt? Let's say after you begin working in your department, you're involved in a job. First of all, get in contact with your supervisor immediately so they can get you the proper medical care and complete the necessary paperwork required both internally and by state law. Second, you should obtain medical aid for any toxic exposure. Even small cuts can become serious if neglected. Hopefully you'll never be involved in any accident and need to use the reporting procedures. However, keep in mind that as an employee, you're required to report all injuries, no matter how minor they may be, immediately to your supervisor. The school system's main interest in making this presentation is to help you recognize and correct unsafe practices while on the job. Many of the tips you've learned today can be used at home as well. Safety is everyone's job. With a little more care and concern, we can make our work sites, our homes, our lives a lot safer. Remember, 90% of all accidents are a result of unsafe attitudes, unsafe behaviors. Let's make sure we enter our new jobs with the right attitudes and follow sound job procedure.
Let's finish by taking a short quiz on what we've learned in the third segment. On the answer sheet that has been provided, circle the answer that best fits the following questions. True or false? Radiation levels given off by computers, or VDTs, are as low as the general background radiation found naturally in the soil and from the sun. True or false? Ergonomics is the science which adapts the work environment with people so that they can interact safely and efficiently with machines. True or asbestos is not a hazard as long as it is maintained in good condition and not allowed to become airborne. True or false? If you become injured on the job, you should report it to your supervisor only when you know you are seriously hurt. Or false? Only 25% of accidents are a result of unsafe attitudes and unsafe behaviors. Please return your answer sheet to the person who set up the video for you to watch. Thank you for your attention, and again, we welcome you to the school's family.
Josh, how did this happen?
Oh, I was playing soccer.
Our image of bloodborne diseases has sharpened in recent years. Today, we know more about their transmission, prevention, and treatment. The three most deadly bloodborne diseases are hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and HIV, human immunodeficiency virus. Research shows that safety precautions such as handling blood and body fluids as though they are infectious, disposing of sharps safely, and using sharp safety devices have decreased the numbers of exposures to bloodborne pathogens or BBPs. But school personnel sometimes fail to consistently use safety precautions. You can change that. We'll tell you how.
A sharper image. We know much more about the spread and prevention of bloodborne pathogens. We can work smarter, but we can't let down our guard. Let's take a closer look at the bloodborne pathogens putting you at greatest risk on the job. Hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and HIV, and what you need to do to protect yourself from them.
Hepatitis B virus, or HBV, causes serious liver disease. About half the people infected with hepatitis B have no symptoms. Those with symptoms may experience jaundice, fatigue, abdominal pain, loss of appetite, occasional nausea, or vomiting. Most people infected with HBV recover and clear the infection, but about 10% become chronically infected for life. Each year, more than 5,000 people die from related chronic liver disease and liver cancer linked to hepatitis B. The hepatitis B virus poses a greater risk than either hepatitis C or HIV because it is more easily transmitted. As of yet, there is a cure for hepatitis B. But fortunately, hepatitis B can be prevented by taking the hepatitis B vaccine and using universal precautions. Your school system may provide the vaccine to you. Hepatitis C virus, or HCV, causes a serious liver disease known as hepatitis C virus infection. This liver disease may cause symptoms similar to hepatitis B, but there are important differences between hepatitis B and hepatitis C. While 85% of people infected with HCV have chronic infections, only about 10% of those infected with HBV are chronically infected. In fact, the Centers for Disease Control, or the CDC, reports about 3 million people in the United States are chronically infected with the hepatitis C virus, while about 1.25 million are chronically infected with the hepatitis B virus. And remember, many people infected with these two viruses have no symptoms at all. That includes about half of those infected with HBV and up to 3/4 of the people infected by HCV. In fact, people who are chronically infected with hepatitis C may have no symptoms for up to 30 years. Yet during that time, the infection may be slowly damaging the liver. Hepatitis C is the leading indicator for liver transplants. Every year, up to 10,000 people die from hepatitis C-related chronic liver disease. Unfortunately, there is no vaccine to prevent hepatitis C. However, newly approved antiviral drugs have been effective in some people who have contracted this infection. HIV attacks a person's immune system and causes it to break down. The clinical picture of HIV infection differs widely from person to person. A number of those infected with HIV remain apparently healthy for many years. The infected person becomes seriously ill when the immune loses its ability to fight infections. Some infected persons go on to develop AIDS. As many as 900,000 people in the United States are infected with HIV, according to the CDC. The numbers are rising among injecting drug users and women. The number of infected people who develop serious illness and who die from AIDS has decreased, thanks to the success of recent treatments. People with HIV now live longer and healthy lives, but yet there is no preventive vaccine against HIV. Hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and AIDS spread most easily through contact with blood. They also spread through contact with other potentially infectious materials, including semen and vaginal secretions, as well as other body fluid or tissue containing visible blood. Bloodborne viruses are most commonly transmitted through sharing needles to inject drugs, or having unprotected sexual intercourse with an infected person, or from mother to unborn child before or during birth. At work, you can be exposed to these viruses if a contaminated sharp punctures your skin, or if blood or other potentially infected material splashes your broken skin or the mucous eyes, nose, or mouth. That's what we know about bloodborne pathogens. Now let's shift our focus to everyday ways to protect ourselves. These techniques help guard you from infection. Your school district may have an exposure control plan that details BBP safety measures. The exposure control plan is based on OSHA's pathogen standard and CDC guidelines. Use your plan to protect yourself. Here's a snapshot of the safety precautions you should take. According to OSHA, immunization against the hepatitis B has proven very effective. Your school district may or may not provide the hepatitis B vaccine. The hepatitis B is a series of 3 shots given in the upper arm over a period of 6 months. Today's vaccines are very effective at protecting you from getting hepatitis B infection if the series is completed. Yourself with a hepatitis vaccine is very important, but it's not enough. We lack vaccines for hepatitis C and HIV infection, so you must follow these safety measures at all times. Standard precautions, as published by the Centers for Disease Control, means treating blood, all body fluid, excretions and secretions except sweat, plus non-intact skin membrane as though infected with bloodborne or other pathogens. Standard precautions include features of both universal precautions and body substance isolation practices. It protects you against the risk of bloodborne pathogens as well as other pathogens. Remember, all body fluids pose a potential risk for infection. Protective equipment, PPE, includes gloves, gowns, aprons, lab coats, shields, protective eyewear, masks, mouthpieces, and resuscitation bags. What's appropriate for your job depends on the level of risk you're exposed to. PPE is always accessible to you, such as custodian's closet or on each hall. All PPE is maintained, replaced, and dispensed by your school. However, PPE can't protect you if it's not used correctly every time it's needed, if it's the wrong item for the job, if it doesn't fit properly, or if it's damaged. If your PPE is penetrated by blood or other infectious material while you're wearing it, remove the item immediately. Dispose of it according to your facility's exposure control plan. 2 common types of PPE: respirators and gloves. Emergency respirators and pocket masks are designed to protect you from a victim's body fluids expelled during resuscitation. Use these devices instead of unprotected mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. You must wear gloves whenever contact with a potentially infectious material is possible. Use utility gloves for housekeeping. Otherwise, single-use disposable gloves are fine. But if you're allergic to materials in disposable gloves, such as latex, use hypoallergenic gloves, powderless gloves, or another alternative. See your advisor about this. Gloves are punctured, so cover hand cuts or skin abrasion bandages before school. Replace disposable single-use gloves as soon as possible if contaminated, punctured, or no longer effective. Never use. While both hands are gloved, carefully peel one glove off from the wrist to the fingertips. Then hold it in the gloved hand. With the exposed hand, peel the second glove off the same way, tucking the first glove inside the second. Promptly and never touch the outside of a glove with your bare skin. Lastly, always wash hands with soap and running water as soon as possible. Hand washing is your #1 protection against infection, and it keeps you from infecting other people or objects. Wash hand affecting blood, body fluids, excretions or secretions, even gloves. Here's how. Wash hands with soap and running water for 10 to 15 seconds. Rub vigorously over all surfaces, including above your wrists. Rinse thoroughly, then dry with a clean paper towel and discard. Now, using a clean paper towel, turn off the faucet. Antimicrobial soaps or cleaners should only be used when indicated, since they remove your skin's natural protective defenses. Many safe work practices are just common sense. You should not eat, drink, or smoke where you are likely to be exposed to blood or body fluids. Also, do not handle condoms or apply cosmetics or lip balms where exposure is possible. And never keep food or drink in places where other potentially infected materials are present. Clean all blood and fluid spills promptly, according to your school policy. Keep work surfaces and protective coverings clean. Wear gloves to handle contaminated laundry and be careful to prevent exposure of your clothing and skin. Deposit wet laundry in a leak-resistant container. Trash may contain sharps or other infectious materials, so do not push it down with your hands or feet. Instead, gently shake down waste containers and carry waste bags by the top away. Dispose of blood and other regulated medical waste in appropriately labeled, closable, leak-proof containers. Follow your state's regulations as specified in your exposure control plan. And remember, if available, use fluorescent orange-red labels, red bags, and containers. And warning signs must be used to warn that the contents contain blood or other potentially infected material. Good housekeeping is everyone's responsibility. The Exposure Control Plan lists specific methods and schedules for cleaning environmental surfaces possibly contaminated with infectious materials. But here are a few general rules. Clean and decontaminate equipment and working surfaces with an appropriate disinfectant as soon as possible after contact with potentially infectious material. Use a broom and dustpan to pick up broken glass, not your hands. Or custodian. Put contaminated sharps and other potentially infectious wastes in closable containers labeled biohazard or color-coded leak-proof containers. Sharps should be placed in sharps containers, not the trash. Handle contaminated laundry as little as possible with minimal agitation. Place items in labeled or color bags or containers without sorting or rinsing them, and use leak-proof bags to transport wet laundry. Regularly inspect and decontaminate bins, pails, cans, and other reusable receptacles be contaminated. Do not panic if exposed or other potentially infected material. Immediately wash the exposed skin area with soap and water. If infectious material enters your eyes, flush eyes and exposed mucous membranes with large amounts of clean water. Do not use caustic agent as bleach, since they can damage. The step is to expose the contaminated person immediately, so that post-exposure evaluation, counseling, and any necessary treatment can begin. Act quickly because with some infections, treatment works best when you start it right away. And remember, exposure does not always lead to infection. To become infected, a dose of the live virus must enter your bloodstream and overcome your body's defense system. To put it in perspective, here are the risks of contracting a bloodborne infection after a sharps injury. Studies report the risk of acquiring hepatitis B for those who have not been vaccinated is from 6 to 30%, or about 1 in 6. For hepatitis C, it's from 2 to 10%, or about 1 in 20. And for HIV, the risk is approximately 0.3%, or 1 in 300.
Now you have a sharper image of bloodborne pathogens. Infections are real and should be taken seriously. But we are making progress in our mission to learn more about BVPs. Right now, our best tool are work practices designed to keep us safe.